Hello people, welcome back. Today we are going to page 110, okay? Let's repeat the new content. A gene, genetic, a cell, DNA, analysis, analyze, chromosome, a bone, bone marrow, to digest, digestion, an ecosystem, to sharpen, scars, prevention, to examine, an epidemic, constant, watertight, waterproof, exposure, to take a look, to inherit, inheritance. Very good. Let's start with the word a gene, okay? Similar to Portuguese, it's a part of the DNA in a cell that controls physical development, behavior of an individual, plant, or animal, okay? And a gene is passed on from our parents, okay? Genetic is everything related or belonging to genes. Okay? A cell. A cell is the smallest basic unit of a plant or of an animal. Okay? Or a small part of something. A cell can also be a small room with not much furniture, normally only a bed and maybe a small table. Okay? Especially when you're talking about a prison or a monastery or a convent, okay? A cell is also a device that produces electrical energy from chemical energy, okay? Or a small group that is part of a political movement, especially one that is secret or that people that plan violent actions. Okay? Very good. DNA is a chemical that is present in every cell of our bodies. Okay, we use the same thing in Portuguese, DNA. Analysis, similar to Portuguese too, the act of analyzing something. To analyze is the verb. And it means to study or examine something in detail. Okay? Normally in order to discover something about it. Chromosome, very similar to Portuguese too. Okay? Any of the rod-like structures found in all living cells, containing chemical patterns that control what an animal or a plant is like. A bone. A bone, guys, is any of the hard parts inside our bodies. Okay? A bone marrow is a soft tissue that is inside our spine. Okay? Bone marrow. To digest. Very similar to Portuguese too. To digest is the verb, digestion is the noun. Digestion is the process that the food goes through when we eat it. Okay, so the digestion starts in our mouths when we chew the food, we swallow it and it goes to our stomach, and there the rest of the digestion takes place. Okay? An ecosystem, just like Portuguese too. Okay, all the living things and how they affect each one another, okay, in their lives, in the environment. To sharpen. Guys, to sharpen can mean to make something sharp, to make something stronger, to improve something, especially when we're talking about knowledge, or to make something clearer, okay, to sharpen. Scars. Scars is something that is not easy to find or not easy to get. Scars can also mean literally almost not. Or it can also be something that is not available in the necessary amount. It can also be a synonym for rare, scarce. Prevention, very similar to Portuguese, the act of stopping something from happening to avoid another thing to happen. Okay? Prevention. To examine, very similar to Portuguese too. To look at or consider a person or thing carefully and in detail in order to discover something about them. Similar to analyze. To examine can also mean to test someone's knowledge or someone's skill in a particular subject. Examination is the noun. We normally call it an examination. It's the same, okay? Or examination is the act of examining, okay? An epidemic. Guys, we are living an epidemic now, okay? An epidemic is the appearance of a particular disease in a large number of people at the same time. Exactly what we are living with the coronavirus. Next word, is constant. Exactly like Portuguese. Constant, with a certain frequency. Okay? Watertight and waterproof. Many people mix up these two words. Okay? Watertight is a container that has no openings and it doesn't allow water to go in or out. Okay? Waterproof is something that even if you put in the water, it doesn't damage that object. For example, a watch. If a watch is waterproof, it means that you can put it under the water without any damage, without causing any damage. Okay? Another example is that, for example, when it rains a lot, normally some people, it's not very common in Brazil, but it's common in Europe, okay, to wear a raincoat. It's a coat and it is waterproof because the water doesn't go through it and protects our clothes from being wet. Okay? Normally, guys, we use waterproof for clothing, and that includes the watch that I have mentioned, or even a cell phone. We say it's waterproof, okay? And watertight for containers, okay? Waterproof often gets used as a synonym for water resistant, okay? Or the two words are used for two different grades of raincoats, boots, etc. To me, watertight implies that the item will be carrying liquid or carrying something dry but immersed in liquid. Okay? Exposure. Similar to Portuguese, comes from the verb to expose. Okay? To show, to put on display. Exposure is the fact of experiencing something or being affected by it because of being in a particular situation or place. Okay, you have been exposed. You have suffered exposure. The fact of something bad that someone has done being made public. The fact of an event or information being often discussed in newspapers and on television or on the news. Okay? This is all exposure. To take a look. To take a look means to look at someone or something quickly and make a decision about them. Okay? We can also, instead of take a look, we can also say have a look. Okay? To examine something but quickly, briefly. Okay? To inherit is the verb, inheritance is the noun. Okay? To inherit, guys, means to receive money or assets like a house or a company, especially after someone has died. For example, someone in your family. Okay? They leave you their inheritance. To inherit can also mean to be born with the same physical or mental characteristics as one of your parents or grandparents. Okay? Or to inherit can also mean to begin to have responsibility for a problem or situation that previously existed or belonged to another person. Okay, we use this verb in Portuguese in the same ways. And inheritance is the noun, is the money you receive from people who have died in your family, and inheritance are the characteristics you have from people in your family. Good? Let's move down, guys. Let's repeat. The doctor examined the patient and wanted to take a look at their last blood examinations to decide what would be the best form of treatment. Scientists analyze cells under a microscope in order to prevent diseases from spreading. Bone marrow and blood donations are always welcome at the health clinic. Our genes are part of the DNA in a cell, which controls our physical development, appearance, and behavior, and is given to us by our parents. Skin cancer is particularly common in Mediterranean countries that have many hours of sun exposure per day. Gradually, the population will learn to deal with food being scarce and invest in growing some vegetables at home, as many did during wartime. Take a look at this leaflet at how you can prevent suffering from indigestion. His boots were watertight and his tent waterproof, so he would keep dry in the hiking trip next weekend. It takes years of studying in order to understand genetic analysis. The damage to the ecosystem because of the extinction of many species has only been sharpened in the last decade. Confidence among the population was scarce after more and more cases of the virus were discovered. Let's practice. Don't forget to pause the video before I answer the questions, okay? Where do you think people should get their information from during an epidemic? People should get their information from scientists and reliable news sources during an epidemic. What type of things can we inherit from our parents through our genes? We can inherit things such as our appearance, body height, hair and eye color from our parents through our genes. Is money that people receive from inheritance normally taxed by the government? Yes, money that people receive from inheritance is normally taxed by the government. Do students have to do various examinations in order to go to university? Yes, students have to do various examinations in order to go to university. How can we prevent an epidemic from spreading? We can prevent an epidemic from spreading by following the advice of doctors and doing things such as washing our hands before eating. How can we prevent ourselves from getting wet when we go walking? We can prevent ourselves from getting wet when we go walking by using watertight boots and waterproof trousers and jacket. What does a butcher often need to do with his knives? A butcher often needs to sharpen his knives. Is human skin waterproof? Yes, human skin is waterproof. How do scientists analyze chromosomes in our cells? Scientists analyze chromosomes in our cells by looking at them under a microscope. How many bones does the average adult human have in their body? The average adult human has 206 bones in their body. Is it easy to burn our skin if we do not use sunscreen and suffer long periods of sun exposure? Yes, it is easy to burn our skin if we do not use sunscreen and suffer long periods of sun exposure. What do firemen's shoes need to be? Firemen's shoes need to be watertight. Is the number of people in the world who are overweight constantly increasing? Yes, the number of people in the world who are overweight is constantly increasing. How much was the inheritance that Rebecca received from her grandmother? Rebecca received $20,000 from her grandmother as inheritance. Can the easiness that we gain weight be tied up with our genetic inheritance? Yes, the easiness that we gain weight can be tied up with our genetic inheritance. Why are bone marrow donations so important? Bone marrow donations are so important because the donations are used by people who are suffering from illnesses such as leukemia. When you are answering questions in your examination, do you analyze the best way to answer before you start writing? Yes, when I am answering questions in my examination, I analyze the best way to answer before I start writing. What are some of the things that our skin does? Some of the things that our skin does are protecting us from bacteria entering our bodies, controlling our body temperature, and controlling water loss. What happened during the epidemic last year? During the epidemic last year, food and water sources were scarce. Is education an important tool when we are talking about prevention? Can you give me an example? Yes, education is an important tool when we are talking about prevention. An example would be, for example, teaching children how important it is to take care of the nature and fauna and flora. Okay, they will understand why we need to do that, and they will do it naturally without us asking for. If I asked you to take a look at my car because it wasn't working, would you be able to help me? No. If you asked me to take a look at your car because it wasn't working, I wouldn't be able to help you. What is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is all the living things in an area and the way they affect each other and the environment. Who is expected to inherit the crown from Queen Elizabeth II? Her son, Prince Charles, is expected to inherit the crown from Queen Elizabeth II. What can we do to stop our actions having such a negative effect on the ecosystem? We can recycle, reduce, or reuse our waste in order to stop our actions having such a negative effect on the ecosystem. Are there any vegetables or fruit that patients are encouraged to eat to help their digestion? Yes, there are some vegetables and fruits that patients are encouraged to eat to help their digestion, such as apples, papaya, and beetroot. Are news reports constantly changing? Yes, news reports are constantly changing. What parts of your appearance or behavior do you think you inherited from your parents? Parts of my appearance and behavior that I think I inherited from my parents are I look just like my father and I have the personality of my mother. What is DNA? DNA is the chemical present at the center of the cells of living things that controls the structure and purpose of each cell and carries genetic information. What would you do if you discovered that you were going to inherit $100,000 from a cousin you didn't know? I would be thrilled if I discovered that I was going to inherit $100,000 from a cousin I didn't know. From a cousin I didn't know, sorry. Did you pay attention in science classes at school to know enough to explain the difference between a gene, DNA, a chromosome, and a cell? No, I didn't pay enough attention in science classes at school to know enough to explain the difference between a gene, DNA, a chromosome, and a cell. Can you give me some examples of food that is difficult to digest? No, I couldn't give you any examples of food that is difficult to digest. Not right now. I don't know. Who had decided to study in the library for his examination because of his flatmates' constant talking? Peter had decided to study in the library for his examination because of his flatmates' constant talking. Very nice, guys. This was today's new content. Okay? See you next lesson. Bye-bye.